And for this many wealthy and successful people to be in one place with the same opinion that they're bullish on the United States is pretty freaking awesome. I attended a conference last week. This is not meant to be a promotional ad for that conference, but I walked away with a clear head and some awesome insights into my strategy, my mindset, and how I manage the emotions and the ego of being an entrepreneur. It was in Columbia, Missouri. It's called Capital Camp. It's put on by my friend Brent Beshore and one of his great friends, Patrick O'Shaughnessy. They're both extremely accomplished investors. Brent runs a real estate private equity company, not real estate, a small business private equity, buys companies, grows them. Patrick is a phenomenal investor. He has a world-renowned podcast from a family of great investors. But this camp was kind of unique. It was expensive, it was out of the way, and it was in the middle of the week during a pretty busy time of year. As summer changes to fall. And the average net worth at this conference, I'll be very frank about all this. The average net worth of this conference was probably $10 million. There were 280 people there. I think there were 8 or 9 billionaires, and there were just a lot of badass people. I felt like a very small fish in a big pond there. It was 3 days. We flew in the first day, had a great dinner with open bar, cocktails, things like that. Next day, some content in the morning, some programming, and then some events, and then another dinner. Same thing the last day, and then we flew out on Friday morning. But I made a point going in to talk to as many people as I could and to kind of break down the walls that are normal. Hey, let's pitch ourselves, let's network, but more get a look into how these people think. I mean, the advantage here is that when you're in a room with so many people you have so much in common with, which is investing, making money. I'd say the crowd was everything from crypto investors to hedge fund managers to a lot of private equity folks who buy and grow businesses to real estate to public equities, stock market folks, day traders, you name it, right? There were a lot, just people who are interested in living good lives and making a lot of money as they go about that, and how to deploy capital, how to think about the economic environment that we're in. So my goal was to, frankly, bust my ass, to make friends with a lot of the people that I knew on Twitter that were there, build relationships with them, and also get to know a lot of other people and how they think about real estate, life, the economy, money, capital, business, whatever it might be. And when you have so much in common with so many people, you can break through barriers quickly. Whereas I might go out to a dinner with a friend or it's an acquaintance or my wife's good friend that she meets somewhere that we're getting together with a group, and I run into a random person. I don't know if they are into what I'm into, which is business and entrepreneurship and capital and investing. So you spend time breaking through barriers to figure that out. And then, how you get to know somebody deeply is kind of a swervy path. But here, everybody has this in common. Everybody knows that the people there are there for a reason. They are investors. They are interested in, wealth and happiness. So first of all, I'll say that I was very amazed by a few things. I went from person to person introducing myself, and I'm exhausted. My voice is still not all the way recovered, and it's been almost a week since I got home. But I got on the plane ride home and my head was spinning. I had so many things to think about, so much input of amazing ideas and amazing ways to think about this stage in my career and taking that stuff and kind of applying it to my life and what I'm doing. And before I get started, I think it's a parallel to this podcast. I mean, I'm here sharing my journey. I'm here sharing what I'm learning. It's up to you to do the work to apply what I talk about to your life. And a conference like this is the same way. I mean, you can go in with an agenda to network, to make partners, to raise capital, whatever it might be. But if you go in with an open mind to learn and to talk to people, you're left with a lot of work to do, because a lot of people challenged what I think. A lot of people challenged how I thought about certain things. A lot of people gave me great ideas, and you just learn a lot. I mean, a couple things that I learned. I took some notes. I've gotten some clarity on some things. A lot of it's still up in the air. I'm sure a lot of podcasts will come from what some of the ideas and things that came from this podcast. But first of all, the conversational skill of these people was off the charts. I think there's no mistaking the correlation between wealth and success and salesmanship. And it's not always salesmanship of, I'm going to sell myself and my ideas. It's the ability to concisely articulate someone's thoughts and how they feel. And these people had done the work to form opinions. That's very unique. I think the average American, I feel at least, that they're just totally manipulated by the media and the people around them. They don't do the work to think about things themselves and have their own opinions. These people are the opposite. They had done the work, they had unique opinions, and they did a very, very good job explaining their opinions. Maybe it's because a lot of them had been on many podcasts and had been in these situations a ton, but the clarity and the concision at which they could speak, I feel like a 30-minute conversation was equivalent to 3 to 4 days getting to know a normal person, because they can quickly and concisely talk about what they're into or what they're thinking about or what they're worried about. And if you get it very deeply engaged in those conversations, they can go really far, really fast. So that was really surprising. The second thing is that everybody there had totally different paths and strategies. And it's easy for me to sit back here on my computer and on Twitter and developing my own ideas and doing this podcast and think that there's one way to win. My way, the Nick Huber way. This is the Nick Huber Show, the Sweaty Startup. I'm probably going to post this on both of my podcasts because it's not directly related to real estate or small business, but they all had totally different paths and strategies. And they had all done different things to make money. The first thing is that there's millions of ways to make money. It blew my mind at some of the ways these people, I talked to somebody who traded and bought domains, and they would start a business based on certain domains that they bought. Other people who bought small businesses, medium-sized businesses, and even large businesses, and the way that they thought about them and the way that they grew them and the way that they made their money was very unique and very niche across the board, from crypto to real estate to all these different ways. Even having some deep conversations with Moses and Chris, who you know well from Twitter, if you follow me, they think a lot differently than me, which was refreshing and exciting. But it just goes to show you that, look, if you ask 100 very wealthy, successful people for advice, you're going to get a lot of different answers. You might even get 100 different opinions on the way to approach something. And that's the hard part about business, and that's the exciting part about business, is that there's no way to win. You hear of investors all the time talk about, I'm not going to bet on the idea. I'm going to bet on the person. I'm going to bet on the execution. I'm going to bet on the leader, because there's so much variability that a company with the best idea could have a poor executor and they're not going to get anywhere. And where I'm going with this is there's so many darn decisions that you have to make when you're in business, when you're an entrepreneur. You have to figure out which way you're going to go, where you're going to go, what you're going to do. And every single situation is different. All these people had different situations that they had navigated. All these people made different decisions than maybe I would have made. There are millions of ways to get to the point that you're going. And it's just eye-opening experience to meet 280 wildly successful people. I probably had conversations with about 100 of them, and vastly different approaches, vastly different opinions, vastly different methods of how to win. And they're all winners. It's mind-blowing, right? To think that there are so many different ways to win. It's kind of frustrating and daunting to think that, oh my God, I'm going to have to make all these decisions, and my situation is nothing like Nick's, and Nick's situation is nothing like Chris's, and Chris's is different than Moses's, and everybody's got a different way of doing things. But it's also incredibly exciting, and that's why we play this game. The last thing that there's so many things that I could take away from this, but the last thing that I kind of blew my mind is I asked a lot of questions on what was your biggest challenge? And what do you think of the environment today? I'm 5 years into real estate. Remember that when you're listening to me, right? I'm 5 years in. I haven't been through a downturn. I didn't go through the Great Recession. I didn't go through the dot-com bubble. I didn't go through the crisis and the stagflation in the 70s and 80s. I talked to people who had. I talked to people who were 50, 60 years old, are 30 years into a very successful career, have done phenomenally well. And I'm asking them, okay, this is different, right? Right now is different. This is a crazy environment. Yield is getting tight. Real estate's blowing up. And they're like, Nick, the environment's always different. Everything always changes. The key to being a successful entrepreneur is finding a way to do business in any environment. And I took that to heart because I feel like we've seen 100 basis points of cap rate compression in self-storage. The appetite for self-storage is insane. The real estate market is at an all-time high. I am having trouble finding deals. The main challenge in my business is finding good deals to buy. And you talk to these entrepreneurs and they're like, Nick, yes, it's volatile. Yes, I'm in the same boat. Yes, it's hard to deploy capital. Yes, yield is tight. Yes, the environment is changing rapidly, but this is no different than it always changes. It always changes rapidly. So it reminded me that the people who win are always thinking about how they can do business in any environment. And right now, since yield is tight and there's not screaming opportunities at every corner, everybody at that conference, or most people that I was talking about, like, how are you navigating today's environment? We're always working to do business no matter what is thrown at us. And right now, we're reducing leverage. Right now, we're accepting lower yield. Right now, we are making sure that if things change the other way and we enter a recession, we're going to be hedged against that, and we're going to have cash on hand, and we're going to have deals that are going to be able to survive it. Are they going to be phenomenal deals? No. Are we going to stop? Am I going to sit back and stop doing real estate deals for 3 years? No. Absolutely not. You have to find a way to do business responsibly in any environment. And those are some of the things that just sent my head spinning, right? Another one is too many entrepreneurs, and there's a shift. I heard this from probably 3 or 4 different people at Capital Camp. There's a shift. Early in your career, you are a bull in a china shop. You're running around, you're looking for that opportunity. You're revolutionizing your business on a yearly basis, but then you find something that works. And generally, you make some money. you make some money, whether it be quick or slow or however it is, you find a way to make some money and you find a model that just clearly pops into your head. This is what I need to do. I need to buy businesses and do this, or I need to buy real estate and do that, or I need to buy crypto and do this, whatever it might be. You have a strategy. And at that point, many entrepreneurs, frankly, they screw it all up because they're still a bull in a china shop. They're still trying to revolutionize their business. They're still, imagine, and I was talking to Chris Powers. I'm going to do an entire episode on this with him in the next couple of weeks because it's a phenomenal way to think about things. But imagine I'm holding a basketball. This basketball is your business, or the globe, and the globe is spinning. And the way to successfully, implement change is your team is living inside that basketball. Your whole company's inside it. Right now in my company, there's 22 people inside this ball. And me, in the olden days, I was cranking it. I was changing everything, shaking it all up, and just click, giant click, just crash. Let's move forward. Let's do this. Let's do this giant deal. Let's change here. Let's go there. And what it does is it just creates an environment of chaos that your business cannot survive for a long time in that way. You cannot always be revolutionizing your business, changing everything, going after a giant opportunity, try to 10x your business in a year. Early days, sure. But once you get momentum, it's much more, I'm holding the basketball in my hand. If you're listening to this, it's much more of I'm going to turn it a little bit. I'm going to click. The next month, I'm going to click again. Everybody in the basketball in your team can be just fine. They're all in there. They're living. They're not getting completely shaken. I mean, can still be very chaotic, can still be stressful, can still be long hours, but click. I'm onto something. Click. I don't need to revolutionize my business. I don't need to be a bull in a china shop. And sometimes this is where the ego comes into play. Sometimes it's just wise to step back. Sometimes the early on micromanagement, the early on driving your team nuts, the early on salesmanship, the early on charisma that got you to where you are as a successful entrepreneur, sometimes it's not necessary. Most of the time it's not necessary. You create something that's working, and absolutely you innovate. Absolutely you think about that point about how the environment is always changing. Absolutely you think about how to do business in any environment. But very rarely does the real estate market change over the course of a 3-week period, except maybe March of 2020, but not really then, right? Very rarely does the entire economic environment change instantly. It happens over years, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, 1 year, whatever it might be. So the click is the way to do it. So you begin to have conversations with people about, okay, what do you do next? What's next for you? What are you going to go after? And it's a battle between your ego and always needing to be doing something and driving your team nuts and tinkering and growing and making those big clicks, those chunks that move your business forward, and just having the wherewithal to step back and do nothing, put one foot in front of the other and let time do its work. You talk to the 60-year-olds, the 50-year-olds who maybe they're billionaires, maybe they've made a ton of money, maybe they've built legacies. And almost all of them will say, I reached a point in my career where I just needed to get the hell out of the way and let the system that I had built run. And that was a very hard thing for me to do as an entrepreneur when it came to my ego and where I was going. And it just hit me like a ton of bricks because right now, for the first time in my career, I feel like I have clarity. I feel like I have a team in place. I feel like I have a business, a model that really all we need to do is put one foot in front of the other and continue to build what we're building right now. But it's so hard. I mean, I struggle with that. You see all these people who are insanely successful and it makes you feel like you need to do more. It makes you feel like you need to go home and attack and innovate and make all these changes when sometimes it's just about finding a business that makes good money and holding on, finding a rocket ship and holding on, finding a model, building a model that does really well and putting one foot in front of the other and not being an idiot and not taking unnecessarily large risks, not levering up to the nth degree, not getting so obsessed with business that it's the only thing in your life so you have nothing to do for 60 hours a week when it's time to step back and let time work its magic. And I thought about those days where my ego gets the best of me and I'm sitting in front of my spreadsheet and I'm thinking about a real estate deal and it's the biggest deal we've ever seen. And I know logically if I step back that there's going to be hundreds of thousands more deals in my life. As I got 40 more years of doing this, but this one deal is so important. I'm going to sit in front of it and I'm going to analyze the projections and I'm going to tinker with the spreadsheets until it makes sense. And I'm going to talk myself into it because this is why we should do and this is what we should go. And it's all about growth and big. And I want to brag on Twitter about how we're going to do our next giant deal. When the wise thing to do would be get the hell away from your computer and go play some golf or go play with your kids or forget about that deal. It's not a good one. So it's a constant battle between more success and the ego. And the clarity that I walked away from that conference with was it's not always about pressing forward at 95 miles an hour. The things that make early entrepreneurs successful are not necessarily the things that help entrepreneurs navigate that middle stage and do well from there. And I walked away from this conference with serious clarity around what I need to do and sometimes going really slow and sometimes thinking about business over the course of 5 years and 10 years is the way to win instead of tinkering inside my business every Sunday night because I'm excited about going to work on Monday morning. So I'll leave you with two more things, is that the overwhelming attitude at this conference was positivity. Very bullish on the American economy. You spend your time on Twitter and watching the news and talking to people who are maybe pessimists, and you think the sky is falling. You think the world is going to end. You think the next variant may shut down the economy. You're afraid of the stock market. You're afraid of all this stuff. You're afraid of the real estate market. These wealthy people were insanely positive outlook. I didn't hear anybody thinking that a giant crash was around the corner. Now, I'm going to put a disclaimer there that most people are preparing for it. They're all saying, we're being very careful because we have a lot to lose. Again, I'm going to put one foot in front of the other. I'm not going to overextend. I'm not going to over leverage. I'm going to make sure that I can withstand a downturn. But do I think it's going to happen? No. I'm planning for it, but I'm bullish. I think the U.S. economy is going to do great. And it's just wild to get that perspective when the narrative for the past 18 months, everywhere we look, is doomsday and it's crashing. And for this many wealthy and successful people to be in one place with the same opinion that they're bullish on the United States is pretty freaking awesome. And the last thing is that I feel very lucky that I'm in the real estate business. There are brilliant people who are in public equities that gave talks in corporate America, in wealth management, in private equity. And I am so glad I'm not competing with those people. They are brilliant. They are way above my level of understanding and clarity and predictions and data analytics. I'm very glad that I'm not competing with them. I always call real estate investors stupid people, but find a place where a lot of stupid people are making money and go compete with them. And I feel very lucky that I'm in the self-storage business and not trying to trade public equities to beat the markets. But it was an amazing experience. Highly recommend you finding a way to network with people that it's kind of contrarian to be positive, and it's kind of contrarian to their attitude was overwhelmingly different than what we see from the real world. So it was a great experience. Walked away with clarity, and highly recommend Capital Camp. I'm going to attend more conferences. I may even try to host one eventually. But yeah, it was phenomenal. Juniper Square, the sponsor of our show, recently did a capital raising survey. And in this survey, they asked 142 senior executives at U.S.-based commercial real estate firms a series of questions to understand the state of commercial real estate fundraising. It's an insanely valuable report with data on questions like, how much capital did you raise last year? How long did your last raise take? What type of investors are you raising the most from? And what strategies are working the best for you to find new investors? Download this report for free at junipersquareresearch.com. That's junipersquareresearch.com. Big thank you to Juniper Square for sponsoring the show. Thank you for listening to the Nick Huber Show. Just wanted to remind you that we have a paid real estate community where some really special stuff is happening. People are breaking down deals. People are networking. People are, I think, even formulating partnerships inside this group. We have over 100 members now. For more information, you can visit sweatystartup.com/REC. And the first 299 members of the group to get some momentum get $200 off the annual membership using the code FIRST299, FIRST 299. And also, you can check it out for 5 days for $1. You make a $1 payment, you can check out the community for 5 days. Highly recommend it if you're serious about bringing in some other people into your network, into your life, to help you become a better real estate investor.